Welcome to Sibs Read Smut podcast, where my sister Helen and I, Ned, will be reviewing romance novels. And spoiler alert, we may be talking about books in full, all the plots and the endings. Which, if you don't know how romance book ends, you're an idiot.
Yeah, that's on you.
That's on you. But to introduce us. And how this idea came about, Helen will give you a little backstory on this weird relationship.
So
you
what?
literally started with an
Damn it! I told Ned we weren't allowed to say but here I am. I actually got that feedback in a professional review recently, so I have a lot of work to do apparently. And
by the way, folks, this is our first episode ever, so we are drinking and we are going to muddle our way through this.
It's literal lube for our podcast. So this idea came about for the podcast when Ned and myself and our dad, which comes up later, all share a Kindle with the same books on it. So I download books that I want to read. And 2 or 3 years ago, I downloaded the book that we'll be talking about tonight, Tessa Bailey's It Happened One Summer. And it was a great beach read. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And I decided to just leave it on there. I didn't think twice about it. And then a couple weeks later, I got a text message from Ned like, hey, I'm out of books. I'm going to read It Happened One Summer. I was immediately like, oh shit, are you... FYI, it is a raunchy beach read, and it's a little steamy. I think I said it's a little steamy, FYI, but enjoy. I'm not going to stop you. You read 500 books a year, by all means. So he decided to read it against advice. And so the next day I started getting text messages from Ned just in shock of the content, coming from somebody who reads like a lot of sci-fi and Westerns. This was not his
spy novels. Genre. Yeah, spy novels.
And the amount of text messages that I started getting about how one contracts pink eye, and
that will be coming up later in the podcast.
A myriad of different things that he was shocked to come across in this book. I think his final comment to me about the book was, I am literally clutching my pearls. And so it has now, this was our first book that we shared. It was hilarious to hear his take on it.
That makes it sound super dirty that we shared. That we shared.
We shared.
Passing around.
Listen, we did live dramatic readings of the sex scenes. And
sounds like one of those hockey books.
We obviously did not do that, but it was very funny to hear Ned's reactions to this book. And so it has since become a fun pastime for Ned to read the books that I will say at this point, what are we, 2-3 years into you reading my books, and you download more smut than I do. I just
absolutely,
for the record,
I read way more than you do at this point, because
I read a good amount, but you read an insane amount.
But you're a ratings whore. You won't read anything below like a 4.0 on Goodreads.
So we have not cut our Kindles off. We've continued to share Kindles. I had ulterior motives. I will be honest with you about this. When I first started encouraging you to read these novels, I was really hopeful. I was like, oh, maybe he'll start dating. I was like, oh, this is really going to help Ned with his dating game.
You weren't terribly subtle about that point.
Well, dating in LA is hard. I'm in Chicago. Ned's in LA. So I figured my wonderful advice via romance novels would really hold. It didn't. Spoiler alert, did not help you with your dating game yet. But that was my ulterior motive. And so we have since, I feel like we've taken in this genre like through a fire hose for the past few years.
It is definitely part of the everyday reading right now. I'm going to finish a book later on today. And then there are 3 more active on our chain right now. So we will we'll see. Much more fodder for future podcast episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and to your point, it was shocking when I read this book. I was not 100% sure what I was up for, and it happened one summer by Tessa Bailey. Helen, hold the book up. You have it in your hands. We'll show her name, give her some credit.
Sorry, I had to put my wine down.
This was my first toe dip into the romance genre, or Brad, or beach read, or whatever we want to call it.
You have to explain what a Brad is. It's
Beach
coined,
read after dark.
yes, coined by at Beach Reads and Bubbly on Instagram. Beach read after dark is a Brad, so it's like a beach read with a lot of boning.
Heavy boning.
Heavy boning.
But we will walk through the plot a little bit here shortly, and we will give some of our commentary on some of these scenes. Just so everyone knows, there are 4 explicit sex scenes in this book.
But there were 5.
What was the 5th one?
There were 5 sexy chapters. Well, does the first one not count because there was no penetration?
No, I have that. I have the oral scene listed on here.
Oh, good. The
first kiss in the first date. I mean, they might have separated the chapters, but I had the first kiss listed down as like, oh, isn't this cute? Which is 41% into the book, which is I think a long way.
And rare for Tessa Bailey. We've read a lot more of Tessa Bailey's, and I feel like she's the one who, like, 3 chapters in, like, forces a sex scene. Like,
yeah,
I dropped.
They're not
$1.
forcing each other, mind you. It is just happening very quickly.
Yes.
We believe in consent.
Thank you. Thank you, Ned. Thank you for being an ally.
Yeah, you're welcome. Also, no condoms in this book either. Which
raw dogging it.
Yeah, just straight. Just I don't know what I was gonna say right there, but it was gonna be hella dirty. He was just bone zoning her, with no protection, and it was a little disconcerting after the book that we had to read about. Not had to, but another one of your downloads or whatever about condoms and whatever else. It's like there's a lot of these books that don't apply safe sex procedures.
So that, to Ned's point, I do make them read books that aren't just smutty. I do make my brother and dad read other books about women's rights. They can be allies. I am a social worker, so I can't help it.
Maybe don't mention that on the podcast.
Too late. People know. Don't Google me.
Do not Google me.
Do not Google this. I will say, and I think this is funny about this genre in general, they do talk about it. I reread all the sex scenes today, of course, because who wouldn't while they're watching their 1-year-old play in the playroom? They talk about it though. Like, she's like, I'm
tested. Yeah, I'm tested. Yeah. I haven't been with anybody in a little while.
In the heat of the moment, and they just feel the need to, like, say, it's okay to not use a condom because of these 5 points. And it just, that feels like, okay, thank you for sharing.
They're also in a hospital, so it's like you can find condoms pretty fucking easy in a hospital. I thought.
I was like, just, I don't know, use a surgery glove.
You're not supposed to use sandwich bags, Helen.
Is that why I have a child? Oops.
Yes. Your improper contraception, thoughts. Mm-hmm. All right. So this book, it happened one summer. Tessa Bailey is about Piper and her sister Hannah. She gets into a shitload of trouble in LA, and her stepdad says, "Fuck off with you up to the Pacific Northwest." And from the get-go, the relationship between Piper and her sister Hannah is funny. They are funny broads. She is snappy and witty. Pour more wine.
Just like me.
Helen's just gonna chug a whole bottle in this podcast. whoopsie. I know I can't get too drunk today because we have Super Bowl tomorrow. Dating the episode.
Don't date the episode.
But they get in trouble, and their back and forth is very well written and very funny. She is Tessa Bailey, particularly, is very good, I think, with character voice and having distinct banter. Good banter and good distinct character voices for each of her characters.
Yes.
And they go to the Pacific Northwest, and shit gets weird.
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
They go to a town called Westmont. Is that right? Westport. Is it in Alaska? And is Alaska considered the Pacific Northwest?
No, they are near Seattle in Washington. When they go to the crab grounds, they go to the Bering Sea, which is off of Alaska.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Carry on.
Deadliest catch.
Carry on. I was very confused. I was like, Westport.
Yeah, I mean, she did a hell of a lot of research on crabbing and stuff like that too. I mean, it was her non-romantic research was pretty impressive.
I do think that she probably was like, I have to write a book about semen. And this is what happened.
It's long, hard, and full of semen. It's a boat.
I mean, it's probably her inspiration. We should ask first. Her.
Yeah. Well, they get there, and they're two spoiled girls from LA, and it is not their cup of tea. They're living in a bar, and above a bar, excuse me, and it is ratty and crappy. And the main guy, would you call this an enemies to lovers story?
Yeah, a little bit.
It goes by so quick, though.
They go from enemies to lovers quickly, yes. But
yeah,
there's not a lot
Brendan
of
is the main guy character, and he is
Brendan
the salty
Taggart.
sea captain, and the seaman, and he is not happy that these two ladies have deigned to move to his town
and take over the local bar. For locals. Yeah,
the locals only bar.
Yeah.
And they really do not hit it off. I wrote down the scene in the grocery store was very funny. They were getting pissy with each other, and then they were kind of like, oh, but he's hot. Oh, but her ass as she walked away in this jumper. Was crazy. I mean, I actually highlighted a whole bunch of stuff on my Kindle, because unlike Helen, I went through the entire book yesterday, listening to it and taking notes, pages of notes, all the sex scenes with the percentages, guys. If you want to know what page number and percentage.
No, I have to read the whole story to get the whole book. This is not porn.
Here's my first highlight was just murder hostel. Tessa Bailey has great turns of phrase like that. She has a couple of them in here. What was the other one? She kept on saying, "Are we going to talk about the thumb thing? Are we going to talk about the tongue thing?" And it was like callbacks throughout the story that I thought were pretty fun. Freshly waxed box was another one that made me giggle a little bit. I mean, there are some real laugh out loud moments in this book. It was pretty impressive. But yeah, so it was from the grocery store scene. It was, who the fuck wears a sequin jumpsuit to the grocery store? And I was
at 8 a.m.
At 8 a.m. And it made me laugh out loud. Just his intonation and how the voice actor who did it read that line made me crack up.
I think I listened to it the first time, right? Because that's how you would have.
That I listened to it for sure.
Yeah, and so I read it this time, and I think I missed out on the listening. I liked it. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it the first time I read it, and reading it back, I do think it's not as great it's not as great reading it. And I've read so much romance since that I feel like I see things in tropes now, as opposed to just enjoying the book. And like feeling like I'm there. I feel like I'm analyzing it a little bit.
Well, yeah, for me, this being the freshest book that I'd never really read a romance. I mean, I'd read books with sex in them before, but not like, oh my
What?
God, I know. But not a book that was like distinctly, this is romance. A, B, then C happens every
Mhm.
time. And it was really, I mean, the not closed door nature of this book was a fucking eye opener, to be sure.
You're welcome.
I know. Well, the Sarah Adams book that I just started today, uh, she goes, if you want more of a closed door experience, you can skip chapters 22 and 30. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's something some people are doing nowadays. It's
Skip
the
straight to those chapters.
no, I'm getting there. It's book 3 in the series. But the what else have I highlight? So okay, so they go to the town, and it's not working out. And then after the grocery store scene, they try to make dinner, which is, I think, the funniest scene in the entire book, when they almost burn down their apartment trying
Yeah.
to make spaghetti bolognese.
Mhm.
And they run out into the street, and things are burning. I mean, it made me laugh out loud. It was hysterical.
There was a line in the grocery store scene about that bolognese because she was like, "What's an easy meal to make?" And he said, "It's spaghetti bolognese, and you just put the sauce and you brown the meat, and then you put the sauce and the mushrooms and peppers." And she responds, "So they like stay in layers?" And he was like, "No, you mix it all together." And it's just I could just see the scene happening, and
Oh
it
yeah,
was very
and
funny. So
she's like, "You brown the meat?"
brown the meat.
She's like, "Oh, it looks a lot less like brains once you put it in the pan." Oh,
Tessa
uh,
Bailey, well done,
yeah,
my
that
lady.
that made that. I mean, that made me laugh so hard. The oh, and then it was uh during, I mean, I highlighted so much from that kitchen scene. It was, I'm the big sister, I'm gonna go see that I have to see that you're properly nourished, plus you clean the toilet from hell, so you've earned dinner and sainthood as far as I'm concerned. That I was like, okay, poignant message of her trying
Yeah,
to be a
of course.
caregiver. And
Mhm.
then, not to mention, her manicurist would shit a brick if she could see her chipped nail polish on Piper's nails. That just made me giggle. And then, if growing up had taught her anything, it was that's the same scene. Um, if growing up in Los Angeles had taught her anything, it was how to make a frenemy. Next time they crossed paths, she wouldn't mind telling him that she'd mastered bolognese, and now had moved on to souffles or coq au vin or coca vin. I don't know what the fuck that is. Who knew? Maybe cooking was an undiscovered calling. Piper turned the stove burner on, holding her breath as it clicked, and clicked some more. Flames shot out of the black wrought iron, and she yelped, stumbling backward into her sister, who steadied her. Oh man, I mean, we could read this entire scene. It makes me laugh even now, just looking at the notes. Oh man.
She creates a scene that you can like you feel like you're there. Like it's very funny. It's very feels real. So kudos to you, Tessa.
Yeah,
The
well,
sex
and
scenes
yeah.
less realistic, in my opinion.
Why? Because on their first date, he ate her pussy on the kitchen table.
Ew. Yes.
Like, push the fish out of the way. Let me get to that other fish.
Okay. But accurate. Um,
Did somebody open a window, or did you uncross your legs?
oh my God. Is that in the book or did she just make that up?
Oh, I made that up right now.
Gross.
Gonna get a salmon bake.
I do think we have missed part of the story explaining that this town in particular, their dad is where they're from. So the Bellinger sisters, Hannah and Piper, were born in this town. And when they get sent back here, it was because their dad owned a bar there and he has since died. And that's how they when he died, they moved to LA when they were really little.
That's the excuse to get him up there. Yeah.
So the excuse to get them back to this town of Westport is because Piper gets in trouble, gets sent away, cut off from her current family, current stepdad, rich stepdad, and they have to go run this bar in Westport. And so they end up meeting this cast of characters in the town, including their paternal grandparents, right? And other people who knew their dad.
My phone just fell off the table, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Almost hit me in the nuts. I need a mute button on my end.
Yes, that is very accurate. So I wanted to add that a little bit of backstory.
A little bit of the how do of it all.
I love the backstory.
Yeah, and he's they make mention multiple times of the deadliest profession, everything else that working these crab boats is very dangerous, which it is. It actually in real life, she did. I felt like she did a fair amount of research with how that works. I mean, maybe she watched 3 episodes of Deadliest Catch, but it was portrayed very well. She did not sound like she knew nothing about it. There's some of these books that we've read where they're writing about a sport, and it's like, oh, this does not sound like accurate. It hasn't been so bad that it's like they're playing football and it sounds like they're playing basketball. And like nothing's been that bad, but
2 points.
Yeah. but they're, you can tell when someone's done research into a subject. And I feel like Tessa Bailey across, we've read a lot of her books, does a fair amount of in-depth kind of, if not terminology research, actual research into how this shit works. The golfing one where she tongued his butt in the shower. That was, there was a lot of golf terminology and stuff in there that was impressive. How these tournaments work and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very true. Biggest fan. What was that one?
That was biggest fan.
Biggest fan. Yeah.
Yeah. Where she tongue baths his butthole in the shower, and then the parents show up the next day, right afterwards or whatever. Mm-hmm. That was a fun one.
There is an element of just how loud she writes these scenes and like the locales of where she chooses. Like there's a scene in this book where they're in the hospital and they aren't sick. They're there for somebody else, but they like find an empty room and just go for it. And there's no way that you can like
bone zone up against the wall in a room.
Yeah. And not get caught.
Yeah. But this is small town Westport. Actually, no, they're in Seattle or something. She had to drive a half hour to get there or whatever. So it wasn't in Westport, but
I mean, she said it was quiet. Like they went to like a lone corner of the hospital, but like,
the other scene that had me laughing out loud was complete subject change from what you were talking about. Was when she crashed the memorial service with the shots. Mm-hmm. She walked into the middle of Brendan's dead wife and her parents' memorial service with a bunch of shots and told him to turn the music up and started like woo girling and then realized it was a memorial service and ran out.
That was a great scene.
That was great. And there's poignant shit in here too, where Piper helps walk this old man to the pagoda or whatever, not pagoda.
History museum.
Well, no, but it was like a statue or something outside. It wasn't the museum itself. It was like a pergola or whatever Okay. He couldn't walk up the steps to this fucking bench that he wanted to sit on.
That's right. Yes.
And she would walk him there every day, and whatever else stuff that Brendan didn't know. She was ingratiating herself with the community and all this kind of stuff. It was very poignant, and she helped her grandma kind of come over her shell. And spoiler alert, their paternal grandma still lives in the town, and they did not know of her or know she existed prior to getting there. So they kind of had to meet her and kind of discover for themselves that she, wild berry, that she was alive. And sorry, little ADHD, a little aside.
Yep.
We'll go with blueberry first.
Focus.
Squirrel.
Bring it back. Bring it back. We're talking about a sex book here, all right? Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad, for the. I'm pretty sure anybody that speaks ASL will know exactly what we're talking about.
I don't think that's a real ASL.
Yeah,
sign.
that's doggy style for in ASL.
Absolutely not. It is not. It's not. You are offending the entire ASL community right now.
What is it?
Cut it out. That's also ASL. What is that?
Bullshit.
That's real.
I know it is.
Okay, good.
Oh man. Stuff.
All right. What other notes do you have on this piece of literature?
Oh, they're arguing at one point, and she's talking about some deep stuff or whatever, and Brennan's trying to understand what she's talking about, and she just goes, "Stop assigning meaning to my words." I was like, that just reminded me of, "Shut your mouth when you're talking to me."
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So there's the first kiss on page 163.
Too far in for Tessa.
Too far in for her, but also the ones where it rushes straight to it, it's like, within 2 days of knowing each other, and then they're suddenly like,
doesn't feel genuine.
Yeah, I mean, for a first kiss, yes, a first kiss could have come a little earlier, but also they didn't even know each other at the beginning of this book. Like, they had no idea who they were. In other books that we read, especially friends to, enemies to friends or whatever else, it's the exact opposite.
Friends to lovers.
Friends, or no, but the enemies to lovers too is like they know each other beforehand to hate each other. This one, they got off to a bad start. They hated each other from the get, and she thought he was married, so she was like, "Oh, not interested." Mm-hmm. And then they kind of got along after that. But yeah, it was not your standard, enemies to lovers kind of trope.
No.
But yeah, so 41 first kiss, it felt organic in this one, a little late in the book usually, but like it after reading the romance genre, a lot now, I have a lot of material to work with. It is a little late in the in the book, not like that straight up porno one with the dick boss.
Okay, that is like a smut. This is a beach read after dark.
Smut. Gonna read smut.
Smut. This is a beach read after dark. # beach reads and bubbly. This is like, it has a real storyline. There's a lot of background. It's a full book with some very open door bedroom scenes, I think, versus smut. That is just like smut. It's literally just like pouring on a page. I mean, I think that was not Mr. Masters or
something bastard.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, that was
dirty bastards, or ugly bastards.
My boss the bastard, or something like that. It was. I mean, hey, if that's your kink, I'm all for it. But like, I need a little story with my sex, please and thank you.
Ned reads the whole magazine.
The whole magazine.
Cover to cover.
Yeah. Not just staring at the boobs.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, so for your first kiss, but very quickly after the first kiss is straight up oral fest, on their first date. Mm-hmm. But to the book
Seafood buffet.
seafood buffet. To Tessa Bailey's credit, I mean, she does set it up with Piper's trying to use her feminine wiles to not let this relationship progress much past friends with bees. You know, it friends with bennies, and you know, so she's like, I'm going to use my sexuality to get him to just bone me, and he says, not going to do it, and just jizzes all over her stomach or whatever.
Yeah. The other thing that makes me, I noticed it really quickly in this book, and I'm sure I noticed it in other books too, but the way that he went from like just from like not even really liking her to suddenly calling her like baby and sweetie, and some of like the dirty talk is like, oh yeah, baby. I was like, she's not your baby. I just like, I feel like it wasn't established.
Every single time in any book that they say baby or honey or anything like that is super fucking gross. And especially when it's read out loud, it's like, ew. Yeah, I'm like, these pet names, it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Come up with some originality, but like, oh, sweetie baby, it's like, fuck you. It's terrible.
I feel like they just jump. There's like a jump from like, hey, Piper, to, oh, baby. And it's like, oh, okay, that got, well, I mean, I guess that's what it's there for, is to let you know that there's a level of intimacy. But Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That just weirds me out. But I mean, yeah, within 20 pages of the first kiss, they are straight up bone zoning, with their mouths and fingers. And then his and then she calls it his spend. His spend was on her stomach.
Spend off of her. I can do that.
Yeah, no, that was like, no, I'll take care of you. That was like, good God. And then fast forward about 40 pages from there is the sexy number deuce in the hospital, the no condo, straight up like, oh my God, I thought you died in the storm. And he went to go to the hospital to check on one of his crewmen, and another seaman. She zooms there thinking that he got hurt somehow after a typhoon, which, okay, arguably kind of scary.
Yeah.
And then
her dad died being a seaman.
Yeah, but she didn't know any of that. She didn't remember his dad. She remembered his laugh. She didn't even, I mean, she
knew that he died in a storm.
He died at sea. Yeah, but not like how it happened. He did die in a storm, but she didn't know any details about it. She just knew that he died crabbing.
Oh.
Got crabs in the Bering Sea.
I went to the Bering Sea and all I got was these crabs.
Exactly. And so, yeah, so what did I write about that?
Carry on.
Hospital sex scene 2, 54% in. It's page 218. I can't even read my handwriting. No condom is in big letters. And then they had talk about, they actually talked about real issues after that. You know, like they, in a lot of these books, they don't talk directly about their issues. You know, that they dance around and they.
You hate that.
I hate
when they just had a conversation. This whole book would not even happen.
Exactly. When an entire plot line can be handled by one fucking conversation, it's like, my God, what are you doing? But in this case, they talked about real issues, and there was a little mix-up-roo at the end, but it was, he was like, you're not going to avoid me. We're not going to not talk about real issues. We're going to handle this like adults. And I thought that was pretty refreshing. I mean, granted, I had no basis for this in the first time I read it through, 2.5 years or 3 years ago or 4 years ago, whenever it was. But now, having read a lot more in the genre, it's I'm an expert here. It's apparent in a lot of books that they're just straight up, you know, one conversation. It's like, talk about your issues. But yeah, so they talk about real issues. So I thought that was a great kind of plot point. And then and then they go out on the boat. So he goes, you know, she got drunk, and he was like, we're gonna talk about real stuff tomorrow. And he's like, I'm taking you on the boat so you can't escape. So they go out on the boat, and she's like, do you beat off here? Like, did you whatever? And they straight up fuck in his, you know, in his cot on the boat. And she's like taking sexy nudes, you know, for him. And I'm like, this is a communal living space. Like, my God, you know, like,
for seamen,
wipe it down.
It's literally a seamen's communal living space. Doesn't need to be wiped down.
Yeah. And then of course that one ends with her slipping a digit in his beehole, and and then one of my favorite lines when that whole scene is ending, he goes, "So are we just not going to talk about the finger thing?"
Feels very realistic.
So we're just not going to talk about the finger thing?
Carry on, baby.
Oh my God. That another one just made me laugh out loud. And then as I mentioned before, they go to a fancy hotel in Seattle, and Hannah, her sister, who's been her kind of like ride or die throughout most of this book, is talking about freshly waxed boxes, and you know, her, like, a turn those turns of phrase get me every time.
You're a TB fan.
Yeah, and then what was it? And then the tongue thing callback. You know, she says the same thing to him after the next sex scene, which is like 40 pages later, where they're banging in the hotel room. What was the fifth sex scene that you were talking about?
I have to check my notes,
because I have the kitchen. I have the kitchen,
Chapter
the hotel.
31. Let's see.
Kitchen, hotel, boat, and then hotel. Oh, kitchen, hospital, boat, then hotel.
Oh, she'd made a huge mistake. Huge. Piper sat astride a mechanical unicorn, preparing to be elevated through a trapdoor onto a stage. Kirby shoved a puffy princess wand into her hand. Piper stared at the object, lamenting the fact that she couldn't magically wish herself out of this situation.
But that's not a sex scene.
No, I know. Well, it says chapter 31, so I think they fuck in this chapter. Let me just reread the whole chapter while we are live on our podcast.
They behind closed doors it, I think, at the end, because they skip right to her fast forwarding to like living back up there again, because the next chapter is like 6 weeks later or something.
Yeah.
Or a week later, or, you know, some you know. But yeah, my last two notes are there. It was a quick and fast low point where, you know, it was, she missed him going on the boat because she was helping the old guy who had a head injury, and she missed him, started bawling her eyes out and crying, and then got to the bar that she was opening. She renovated the bar and was opening it, and nobody showed up because there was an oil rig fire or something. And you know, other shit goes down, and she decides to go back to LA for this party that her friend was throwing, and complete miscommunication. You know, Brennan did not have service on the boat, and he immediately goes after her. And, you know, it was a nice kind of quick boom, done. Let's get it.
I need you to know, to your point, the last line of the entire book almost is, are we just not going to talk about the mechanical unicorn?
Yeah, that's another great callback.
The callbacks of are we just not going to talk about that?
The successive callbacks were pretty great.
Pretty great.
I mean, and you know, Brendan as a character was fairly believable. I mean, he
Yeah.
had lost a wife to an aneurysm, to sickness. He was a grump, stuck in his ways, captain of a boat, so he was, had to be super responsible and everything else. And she was a party girl, and Tessa Bailey wrote the character very well, the ditzy party girl kind of thing with the heart of gold. And yeah, I mean, I thought that they were infinitely relatable characters. Like, sometimes you get these books with the spies and the whatevers or the dragon fuckers or whatever, and it's like,
what?
The characters themselves, their qualities can be relatable, but ain't nobody riding dragons.
So you think?
Not in this world. But they were very, it was a very relatable book character wise, and also because I've watched Deadliest Catch, and that's like in my wheelhouse. It was not the worst thing to read first time going in, and if it had some spies or some shooting or something in it, probably could have really catapulted me, onto the romance level, but it did not. It did not. It did not turn me off to the genre, because I've read a lot more.
You're welcome. I take full credit. Thank you.
All right, Helen. So wrapping this story up, what are you going to rate this book?
I rate this book 5 jizz socks.
5 jizz socks. Okay. All right. That's, I guess,
out of 5. Out of 5. So
out of 5. Okay.
A great rating.
I
5
mean,
crispy jizz socks. Crunchy,
crusty,
crack them in half.
jizz socks.
Yes.
Jim socks.
Don't bring Jim into this. Jim is an innocent party.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Ned, what do you rate this book?
I would give this 5 out of 5 tongues in the butt. 5 out of 5 cornholes. The game, Helen. Get your mind out of the gutter.
The game. That's right. That's right, of course. I can tell you went to college in Ohio. Cornhole.
Your mom went to college.
It's your mom, too. How dare you?
It's your mom, too. Mary Lou's a saint. Dorothy Mantooth is a saint.
Dare you?
All right, and so on the next episode of Sibs Read Smut, we will be talking about Lyssa K. Adams's The Bromance Book Club, which was another very early read in our experiment into reading romance books together at the same time.
I would say, well, not at the same time. I read that book and then I bullied you into reading it. So once you read this book and you were receptive to it, I thought to myself, here I go on my ulterior motive plan. Here I go. This is going to work. And I had already read The Bromance Book Club and loved it. And so I said, this is a book literally about a bunch of dudes who read romance novels, which I was like, that's
Ned.
Save
it for the pod, Helen.
Listen, I'm trying to tee it up. So that's why I thought this is going to be a perfect book for Ned to read. It's going to really lube up his journey into this world of romance, and it's going to be spectacular. And that's the book we're going to discuss in depth
next week. Or next time, or whenever the next episode happens.
Next time.
Next time
on Sibs Read Smut.
Sibs Read Smut.
Smut.
It's like keep on reading Rainbow, and insert funny sign off here. Click.
Check.
All right.